Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We just wrapped up I don't know what to call this part of the tournament. The loser bracket finals, I guess, because BDS was in the winner bracket final and now in the final. Yeah, the loser bracket final between Vitality and Mad Lions. We just wrapped it up. Mad Lions is victorious. We're going to dig and dive deep into what happened in the series, and then we're going to, of course, break down the potential finals. If you're interested, please check out my Metafy channel or website. Book a lesson now. I think the perfect timing would be to do something between, of course, the LEC finals and MSI starting. I am planning to raise the prices, which might sound like a asshole thing to do, but there's a lot of bookings. There's a lot of bookings. And yeah, yeah. So just try to get in there before it's too late because I'm probably going to change up the price coming into next week. Just a heads up for all the homies on YouTube that stick with me when I'm not streaming and I'm on the LEC broadcast. If you don't know, usually I'm just doing these from my hotel. Just some rundowns. We look at some clips, some significant moments in the game. All in all, we just talk about the games. Let's talk about game number one. Let me just swap over to the page. Game number one, Vitality went for the first pick Maokai, and they removed Gragas, Rakan, and Jinx. This is a bit of a change up, right? The Jinx ban instead of the Vi ban, which is, in the end, a choice because we talked about this yesterday. Mad Lions have a lot of juicers that they like to play, and I think the Mad Lions have been very, very sharp when it comes to what they pick 1, 2, 3, and they showcase that once again in this draft. Vitality showed their hand in the fact that they haven't found a way to, enable Bo in the way he likes to play when it comes to some of the more active junglers that like to fight. Obviously, you are limited by the meta, and sometimes you just need to lean into it. This time around, they went for the first pick Maokai, probably because they expected if they pick Vi, the enemy, to just go Zaya and then Maokai and play like a Zaya Jace Maokai combo. And I think that's why they looked for the first pick Maokai. Mad Lions responds with Vi Zaya. Of course, you want to deny the Zaya from the enemy when you're the one on the Vi. And of course, you can pair it together with the Nautilus, something that Kaiser likes. Vitality respond with Lucian, Nami, and Ari. So the key thing here, right, something that we've seen from Mad Lions and BDS, they follow a very similar draft structure where they drop support and they pretty much secure the jungler and they secure one of the solo laners. Either that's usually Jace, Ken, and Gragas, or that is just a mid laner that is, for example, Ari. And it allows you to have the most amount of flexibility coming into 4-5, so I like it a lot. Vitality hurt themselves a lot here because they end up on blue side banning the strongest top laners to pick, which of course is Jace and Cannon. They are worried about the enemy team picking that on 4, so they banned it themselves, which of course is a very tricky and peculiar position to put yourself in because these are champions that usually are first picked, and that is the price that you pay for first picking the Maokai and then following with Lucian and Nami. I think in some cases it's perfectly fine to give up a Jason Cannon if you're capable of playing tanks top. I think tanks are the champs that are doing the best into both these type of champs. One of them itemizes lethality, the other spell penetration. So you get a lot of value from getting null magic mantle, and any form of CC is good into both. But this is not something that Photon likes to play. So Maokai, of course, you're hoping that you can slam one of the AD mid laners together with it, whether that's Jace, Yone, or Tristana. Mad Lions did a very good job of targeting the correct bans here in the 4-5 and the Yone and the Tristana. Fourth pick Nautilus into Lucian Nami. That's also one of those things, right? It's like if you don't have answers into Jace, you don't have answers into Cannon coming into 4-5, then you also don't reserve any bans for your Lucian and Nami. and giving up the Nautilus, which is probably the only viable support together with Rakan that you can play into Lucian Nami. That's also a very significant price to pay. So I think this is a draft of Vitality showed that they were a little bit cold coming into the series. Cassio gets picked, which is perfectly fine, into Ari and Zaya. Vi is a champion that can play around the miasma rather easy because she can cover a lot of distance very quickly. She can Q out of range of the miasma and then R, and she's of course unstoppable. And there's a lot of counterplay there, for Vi and Ari to set up ganks on Cassio. She's very immobile, can't buy boots, can't buy mercs, can't buy defensive items that easily. That is going to help her survive. But to be honest, which champion can? That is not called Lissandra. It's also one of those things, right? If you're in a situation where you could find a way to pick an AD top, maybe you could play Lissandra together with Mauka and still find value. But in this draft, right, with Kaysanti, you can't really pick Lissandra. I think you would be too hurt by the efficiency of Merc threads in such a game. So that's another layer of why Maokai sometimes can restrict you a little bit in draft, even though the champion inherently is very strong with what it contributes in the kit. Considering the pool that you can play around mid, we saw the adaptation later of Vitality where they decided to just slam full topside 1, 2, 3 and then drop bot, which is something that they found more success on. But coming into this draft, I think that Mad Lions looked a lot stronger. There was a repetition of the same from before. Vi, Zaya, Ari being very strong, a very strong 1, 2, 3, following up with a support that works well into Lucian Nami, setting up Hilly for success. And then, of course, matching the Kaysander with the Gwen. And Gwen, you guys know that I love Gwen on this channel. Gwen, I think if she has a good matchup, she is one of the strongest champions of the game because I think inherently there's very little, that is very few champions that are good against her in a team fight due to how her W works. She loves to fight in close quarters, and you're forced to fight in close quarters with her when she uses her W, and her R just inherently has so much damage, and she has very good itemization on the patch. The key thing is, of course, it's matchup related. If Gwen can't be even, if Gwen can't get ahead, and she's behind in the game, being behind on the curve, she doesn't do that great, right? Looking at the game, the main thing here was just Elioya and Niski's performance around mid. I want to just highlight Hilisang's beautiful play as well in this game. Going to back up a bit. We had this first initial moment in the game where Bo is posturing for this invade. He has enough information to know that this was a buff into Wolves, and Bo wanted to look to punish on the Wolves. He was a little bit late, and I think that with the wave position around mid, Niski secured level 3 first. This was a 2-wave push Perks into bounce. So Miski Perks, I don't know, just because we don't have Pro View, I don't know if there was a way for him to start hitting the next wave or what went on there. But just the circumstances we see on our screen, Niski's level 3 first, and he's slow pushing into Perks. Perks is not level 3. Maybe if he was level 3, he could push her forward and pressure Niski a little bit more when he's crossing this position and maybe support Bo. But then again, Bo is not going to really win the isolated 1v1 against the Vi anyway. So this is always what was so weird about Bo. Considering this position, you have Lucian, Nami, bot. Nautilus can cross very easily because this is wave number 3 for bot. He can cross, and there's not going to be an XP disadvantage because both bot lanes are going to be level 2. Hilisan can cross. Maokai is not a champion that you want to find yourself in these predicaments this early on in the game unless you have a significant lane advantage that will cover for your weakness and then elevate your strength, as the fact that you provide CC. So this was a very, very strange circumstance to find ourselves in. Just going to let it play. Bojack getting caught, and then the charm followed after the W. Bo very low HP, and all of a sudden, this is such a terrible situation to be in. Perks needing to burn his flash, and the flash after Bo here. He survives at 1 HP. Niski finishes the kill, gets the red buff. Nami flashes to try to throw a heal and maybe proc Guardian, but it wasn't enough. Already you have such a mess of a game here. It's just a complete disaster. Cassio's, of course, going to TB back mid, and we mentioned before that this wave is slow pushing towards Perks. And Perks is in the state of mind where he wants to thin out the wave. And for the isolated matchup, he wants to make sure that Niski doesn't get a clean base here, but Hilly just has the eye of the tiger. in a situation where maybe Bo covers this or he's backing up the Casio and they recognize this in some shape or form, Nabi maybe opens up on mid, then Casio's conditions are very favorable here, considering that Vi was very low HP and needed to base after the engagement. So they know the timing window of Vi, and Maokai has home guards, so he's a little bit quicker on the map. And this was kind of the story of the series. We let this play out here. This is Casio TPing back and Hilly just deciding to stick around. He is playing in the pocket where there's no vision on him, and then he's looking to punish Perks here. Perks is looking to thin out the wave. They know that Niski wants to base, because if Niski gets the juicer base here, he's going to be super, super strong, TP back, and Perks wants to look to punish. Maokai is now looking for the crab, use spells, and this was a very risky gambit here by Hilly, but it worked out beautifully because this situation is going to end in a 1-for-1. So you notice the Maokai here on the minimap does have the tempo advantage as first in river because of the home guard aspect of the game. Dying is just a quicker recall, you're quicker on the map, and Vi is nowhere to be found just yet, still 12 CS. And then here Perks, he's trying to make the best out of the situation, and the minions, the filet mignons, are just doing so much damage. I wonder if there's a situation here where if Perks kites a little bit back and Bo push the crab into mid, this situation would play it out completely differently. Because the main thing that is doing damage here to Perks is just all the minions are just shooting, with their little wands. They're just attacking Perks here, is doing a lot of damage. On paper, this looks, it's a 1-for-1, okay. But the key thing here is that Mad Lions, there's no punish on bot because Zaya did in fact crash the wave and she doesn't need any attention. Kaiser lost plenty of time. If we just look at Kaiser's movement here, right? Look at Kaiser's movement. So he went straight into bottom tier 2, right? He could have been on tier 2 mid, maybe closer to tier 1 because it's a shorter lane, and they could have coordinated around the situation a lot better. Instead, Nami is very late, very late, very rude. You need to be on time when it comes to all the juicy situations. And then here Niski TP's back with a goddamn lost chapter. Crazy, crazy. And all of a sudden, these conditions in the game, right? Casio has no flash, and RE6 is coming up around the corner. There's a lost chapter in the pocket of Ari, and her weakness in the potential 1v1 is completely covered by just a sack of gold. And this is, the story of the series. It's just Elioya and Hilly finding way more impact on the map, and Vitality having a very hard time securing the lanes and playing around jungle information correctly, because Mad Lions were always aware of what the next step of Vitality was, and Vitality couldn't find ways to protect themselves from the onslaught that was the Elioya ganks and the Hilly ganks. We just let the montage play because the whole continuation was pretty much just a party of ganks around mid lane. There was some back and forth, Hilly losing his life here while Vi is doing, of course, the dragon. Lucianami baited this in, plain and simple. And at some point, Elio is going to reach 6. A very nice timing window here, right? It's like, I think there could be an argument for Perks playing a little more defensive in the windows where his teammates are also basing. I don't think it's fair to only blame Bo and Kaiser in terms of how they secured mid. But generally speaking, I feel like Mad Lions are just so much more aware of what they need to achieve, because just look at the ward placement around the map. It's like Gwen put a ward on the Gromp. There's a pink ward right behind the cliff of Perks. There's a pink ward in the Pixel Bush. There is so much information that Mad Lions were always playing with, and this is something that was never ever contested. And of course, it's a little bit more difficult to do so when you are the one playing the Nami lane. Usually, you just want to open on the map with Maokai through bottom side and take over river to make sure that you secure Casio. And then when Casio is secured, you can begin to play the game. But like this, Casio's flash is just coming off, the ult into the charm, very plain and simple, a very classic combo. Very happy to see that Ari is finally finding some success in Europe too. This was the story of the game. Perks was just getting camped on mid, getting slaughtered on mid by the homies. And now you have Bo, of course, Nami showing on the top wave. Very awkward, right? Because Lucian can't push on the wave on his own. It's like they need to wait for Nautilus to show. And then by the time Nautilus is already showing, it becomes too hard to punish the Xayah under the turret. And this was just the rotation of the whole game. It's like just Kill after kill on the mid lane. I think there's, you know, just a snowball from everything that happened before, and Mad Lions just continue with the same path. As mentioned before, it's just a montage of perks really dying here on mid, and eventually, you know, you have this big Rift Herald fight that Vitality chose to take. This was the fight that kind of cemented it all. I think Kazi did a good job of disengaging and then finding the right timing to re-enter into the fight after the miasma is gone. I think this was very well played here from Kazi. Has a good position. He knows that all of the spells from Cassio is used, so he's just posturing forward. And then he finds a lot of feathers and places the ult in a way where everyone is getting, completely slaughtered by the Blade Recall. And that was game number one. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Game number two was a bit of a different story. I think the key thing here was just, here the change up from Vitality was Gragas, Arakan, and Vi, and then they just chose to lock in the Maokai. The response from Mad Lions was Jason Sejuani. No pry on Cannon just yet. You know, I think everyone is beginning to realize Cannon's really OP, and Jace as a counter to Cannon is a myth here in Europe. Nevertheless, Jace Sejuani gets locked in, which is perfectly fine. And then Rumble Tristana, which is very unique, right? So you have the Rumble into Jace, and then you have the Tristana blind. Usually, when you see a Tristana blind, you want to play the likes of Syndra, you want to play the likes of Victor, you want to potentially play the likes of Cassio. Here, Mad Lions felt comfortable in the fact that they have enough answers into Tristana, so they locked Jinx on 3, which is, of course, a juicer in itself. You have Jinx on 3 and then counterpick support. It's super, super nice. Here, the inaccuracies, I would say, there's just the Lucian Zaya. I think the Lucian ban is good, but I think that the Zaya ban is kind of out of place here. I think that you're probably better off banning Nautilus, or you're just better off banning Aphelios, because I think that Zaya, even though she is quite OP on the patch, I think Zaya is definitely weaker against Jace and Jinx, but it just depends on the player that you're playing up against. And Vitality didn't show too much Aphelios prio. It's just something that we know of upset that he really likes the Aphelios. But I think in the end, probably Nautilus ban is the way to go, because Nautilus Aphelios is a good pairing that you can pick blind, and of course, Zaya Nautilus is also a very good pairing that you can pick blind. So yeah, Mad Lions pick Silas on 4, which is kind of crazy. Sure. What are the arguments for Silas? Oh, you have a Maokai ult, you have a Rumble ult, you have a Sejuani, melee synergy, ha ha ha. But you're laning against the Tristana. Tristana's gonna go demolish, she's gonna go bomb plating, and you're just gonna have a hard time. You're just not gonna enjoy life at all. And he really didn't. He really, really didn't enjoy his time at all. This game was quickly decided on the first Herald, but I think the opening sequences of the game. Let me see if they actually show it in the highlight reel. We had a lot of contention in the 2v2 top, but then we have the Ignite of Rumble on the slow push wave out, and we had the sequence here where we went 1-for-1 and Photon uses Ignite. Then, of course, he has to base because Jace is coming back with the teleportation device. There was some situations, some volatility around bottom side. This was a situation where Hilly already burnt his flash. Hilly already burnt his flash out, and Kazi traded for way too long. You can see that he just burnt his flash, right, because of the Nautilus Q, because of the level 3 timer here with the purple gun. We have the situation here. They didn't actually highlight it mid, but basically Silas TP'd back, and then Tristana, he hard traded into Tristana, burnt all of his mana, and he then is freezing the wave, but he can't really do anything with that wave. Nothing at all, because he has no mana, no pressure on Tristana at all. Tristana comes back after TPing back with a Noon Quiver. So Niski's conditions were so terrible. Perks managed to get 2 platings. Already you have a 700 gold advantage in the mid lane, which is massive. And that is 2 platings and the CS discrepancy, right? So we walk into this fight, and this is, of course, the dream fight here for Vitality. Nautilus is first on the location, good management of the wave bottom side. The advantage that maybe Mad Lions could leverage here is the fact that if you look at Hilly's XP bar, it is very close to level 6. That is like the only advantage. But he, in order to get that XP, get that level 6 XP, my man, needed to be bought for another wave. So Rumble is already there, and Vitality did a very good job of leashing this Herald on the correct timer. They saw the Jinx and Of course, Renata were on the bot turret and they were trying to cross, and they just leashed the Rift Herald just on spawn, and they're going to kill it before Renata and Jinx can even interact here. Mad Lions feel very desperate because Rumble is now catching a wave on bot, and Aphelios is now showing on top wave. Sure, you could argue here that maybe they should have pulled the Rift Herald out towards top side to align more with the Aphelios. But with the way everything went, this was very decent. Kazi sends his ultimates. They trade 1-for-1. Niski pushes forward, goes deep, but they kill him and they get the Rift Herald, and Rumble managed to catch the bot wave at the same time. The fight extends, and all of a sudden you have Tristana doing very good things. She's not playing with presence of mind, so she doesn't have mana to jump around, but this kind of spelled GG already. Big advantage for Vitality, and this game quickly turned into the Perks show. Probably the best Perks game we've seen in a very long time. This was a very good performance from him on the Tristana, and they found kills and kills again. Mad Lions is a very unique team because they're kind of the incarnate of course, the MLXG meme. We're ahead, we should fight. We're even, we should fight to get an advantage. We're behind, we should fight to bounce back. And the improvement that the Mad Lions have done is that they fight more often as a group. This fight that we are about to show here on the screen, this was a sequence that was so close, so close. So many things could have went in Mad Lions' favor that would have maybe turned around the game. I'm just going to let it play and just do a little commentary over it. He had the good engage with the Nautilus Q on Hilly, but he trades 1-for-1 and he lays down, of course, the CC carpet. And then the fight extends, and then here, Rumble walks into a little Jinx trap. And he just gets CC'd, Sejuani ult, and then, of course, he's about to get bursted down, but stopwatch. He gets saved. Of course, someone's going to be able to time a spell here to maybe punish him. Boom, both spells fly. He managed to flash away. Of course, very hard to time because he's going to spam press flash, so all the advantage here is for Rumble. But maybe, if you get the reset here, all of a sudden the Jinx with the Kraken will be able to hit and everything changes, right? But instead, there's no reset, and the fight continues. Here, of course, Jinx still has her ultimate. Upset used Gale Force here to get out, and we're just going to have an extension of this. Rumble is going to come out of base now, and now we pay attention to the ult CDs, right? So you have the Silas ult on cooldown because he's playing CDR and Everfrost. And then you have no Nautilus ult, no Tristana ult, no Maokai ult, no Rumble ult. And this is also, once again, so close. In a case where Niski places the Rumble ult just a little bit better, I don't blame him for it, right? The Rumble ult is a very unique ult to place. In a situation where he places the Rumble ult just a little bit better, then maybe things could have been changed too, because that Rumble ult is, covering a lot of space that doesn't matter. He put down the red carpet for his minions, but they are not Hollywood celebrities. They don't need to have anything extravagant to walk on in order to walk into the enemy turret. That's their job. That's their life. That's what they live for. They die and they respawn again, is what I like to think. It would be very sad if each minion is a new minion and they just get to live for about 30 seconds. God bless the minions that are there for the final push. Maybe that's the dream that every minion wants to achieve. I hope you feel bad the next time you lasted a minion. Or even worse, they materialize it. Shit. Nevertheless, Rumble ult lands, doesn't finish off. It could have been placed better because look at that HP differential. It's crazy how narrow some of these engagements were for Mad. But now it's on the flip side, right? Rumble ult is now back on cooldown. Maokai ult is back on cooldown, and they're walking into a Drake situation. Perks is low HP, but he's going to be able to TP back with the Empower TP. He's going to be here on time. Maokai ult is going to be rocking and rolling. The Root Sandstorm is coming. We have the Rumble ult to match that too. Look at that Maokai ult, and the Rumble ult is just a synergistic barbecue. It's just throwing wood into the fire to create more smoke and more heat. And then Perks, of course, is just bouncing with the resets, and there we go. GG. Lights out. But still, even though this was a Vitality win, was very close. If some of these engagements went in the other direction, some small details, all of a sudden the game changes. We move on to game number 3. Mad Lions now back on the blue side. Blue side, blue side, blue side. Mad Lions now went before the Olav Zeri Maokai ban. Vitality went for any Rakan Gragas, which means that, of course, Vi is open. Mad Lions chose to pick the AD carry that is very good into Vi and created a composition that makes Vi inherently useless. The main thing when this happens in the game, right, is that you're kind of hoping that you're able to pick champions in other roles that are gonna then make, of course, the counters to Vi useless. But that is something that didn't really occur at an extreme level. So you have the Zaya first pick matched with Cannon and Vi. I like the Cannon blind because I think the whole Jace counter pick, I think Chasey on Jace wasn't that great. And I think that when he played it, he showcased a lot of weakness. Cannon and Vi lock in, they think to themselves, okay, would we rather play Vi into Zaya or would we want to give Vi into the enemy team? Because what would happen, right? Enemy first pick Zaya, they pick Vi and Ari, and then maybe you just don't feel comfortable playing the Lissandra on 3 when you already picked Cannon. That could be a part of it, right? I thought when this was locked in, I thought that they're going to go Cannon Wukong and then Lissandra on 3 into Vi, and I would have been a lot more happy, right? I think it would have been a lot more better. But they went Cannon and Vi, and then Mad Lions responded with going Lee Sin, which is decent matchup into Vi. I think that's perfectly playable if you have setup on your lanes. And then Lissandra on 3. Once again, extending this idea, Zaya Lissandra against Vi. Vi is about to be useless. She's going to only play a very supportive role in the fights. And hopefully Vitality can find enough value in the other positions to, of course, outmaneuver the enemy. So the big Aphelios after the successful Aphelios game, and they're going to look to counterpick support. They set up some bans here for the cannon to, just make him stronger. Here, once again, right, I think the trend of this best of 5, I think the key thing that teams needed to look out for is to make sure that Nautilus is banned, because Nautilus is the champion that is blindable when Braum is out specifically. That is going to set you up for the success in the bottom side, especially with Zaya, with Rakan out. Not a lot of supports that you can lock in together with her that are blindable, right? Think about it. It's like you can play Zaya Leona or something. That's definitely worse than Nautilus in my opinion. And then they locked in Kesante. Kesante is very powerful here because the enemy is already showcasing a hand of Syndra, Kennen, and Vi, and I think that Kesante is very good into as a tank. He's just going to itemize magic resistance. Of course, no Iceborne Gauntlet, but he's going to be able to itemize magic resistance as he did, right? And then Syndra and Kennen and Vi will have a very hard time breaking him. The only hope is that the Felios reaches 3 items, buys LDR, and maybe chips away at him, but it isn't super comfortable. Once again, with how the series had played out so far, the key thing here, right, is that they have a lot of setup in all of the lanes. They have a stronger 3v3 around mid lane. They have a stronger 2v2 around mid lane, in my opinion, as well. Sure, in the isolated matchups, Kennen can pressure Kesante, Syndra can pressure Lissandra, but Mad Lions have been very, very sharp in finding gank timers and setting up the map for success in ways that denies the enemy key vision that allows them to play the matchups. And this is where Vitality have struggled, utilizing jungle in a way to secure lanes so the players can actually exude their dominance. We also have the Tahm Kench on 5. On paper, right? Tahm Kench, into the enemy composition, right? You play it against Lissandra. You can, peel for your Aphelios, and you can peel for your Syndra. You can provoke the enemy engaging with Aphelios and Syndra range. The issue is just Mad Lions have so much tools to pressure with. If Mad Lions played clever and they bait out the Tahm Kench eat, how big can the punishment be after you've thrown something in the direction of them, right? It's like, sure, if you counter-engage with Kennen and Vi, things can get good. And I could definitely see a world where Vitality's composition would be hard to break because you know that this short-range composition on Mad Lions' side needs to enter the sphere of influence and are going to get Syndra ease into their foreheads and Ophelia is going to be able to hit for free and they just disengage with Tahm. I can definitely see that play out. But the story of this series was not only are team fights essential, right? Team fights are very important, a very important aspect of the game due to how objectives are. But all those details of what goes on in between in terms of how you manage side waves, how you can fight 2v2, 3v3, and contest important space in the river with uh, uneven numbers. You know, this is a very essential part of the game, and this is something that Mad Lions did so well. And I believe this is going to be their biggest weapon against BDS. BDS have found a way of simplifying the parts in between Drake spawns as much as possible by sacking a lot of waves on Adam and really playing only on two lanes no matter what. And I feel like this is where Mad Lions are a little bit more flexible, and this is where they can potentially gain some value. But BDS is also a team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes and don't necessarily give up more than they need to. They might lose some side lane turrets, but at least Adam is not dying on side trying to catch those waves or trying to push those waves. This is something that you see a lot of other teams do. You think of G2 yesterday, BB and Caps were dying on side over and over and over again. And I feel like Mad Lions are very good at using Fog of War and leveraging, their champion choices like Lee Sin and Nautilus in order to pressure on side and finding those kills on solo laners that have been led astray. And that is why this clash of playstyles is going to be super interesting because BDS is very streamlined in the way they play, but more on that after the fact. Looking at some of the highlights of this game is just once again, it's a damn Elioya montage. There was this dive attempt in the mid lane that was pretty mental. You know, Lissandra is a pretty miserable matchup to play into Syndra. I would hate to do so. You kind of hope that your Nautilus and Lee Sin is going to swing by. You know, it's like. You just bought a bunch of snacks and popcorn and beer, and you're just waiting for your homies to swing by and to spend some time with you. Because if you eat all of that yourself, you're just gonna get a food coma and you're gonna hate yourself the next day because your stomach is gonna be very upset with you, right? So you're just waiting for your homies to swing by and to share, those moments with you. We started off in this game. Damn, that was loud. Uh, this moment in the game, Niski with a good E, but he survives here in the W, and then Bo is 1 HP, knocks him out, but then Lee Sin here is back to recover. And, Elioya getting monster fed off of this, the filet mignons are all dying in front of him. He can't say anything to Niski. Sorry, bro. What should I do? I need to farm these. Then the continuation was just the homies around mid lane killing, and then Elioya just finding ganks all over the map. We fast forward, another kill, Elioyo. Then we have this situation. Elioya is back at it. It's like I said it on broadcast. It's like people say, "Yo, where the fuck is the?" We were sad that there's no pro view, but this whole match was just an Elioya pro view because we just see him kicking people in the head on camera nonstop. And even though, maybe in 5v5s, if they have even conditions, things would be very different. But the issue is just that priority on the map, the fact that they can walk into spaces first and face check, and they are very strong in these skirmishes, allows them to take control of the rivers. And when they take control of the rivers, Cannon and Syndra can't really pressure forward because they're afraid of ganks, and it's so difficult for them to ever recover the map because they're so much weaker in the skirmishes. And this is a very, very crucial part of the game that we don't see so much of in the West. So I'm very happy that Mad Lions have brought back these concepts because these are very, very important concepts when you look at the Eastern games. Sometimes you might think, oh, why are they over-indexing here? They're picking these champions, they're picking these skirmish champions. How can this even work in a 5v5? Sometimes it matters a lot less, right? And sure, there is definitely a lot of improvements Vitality could do in terms of how they manage the map because they did in fact lose the summoners around mid and gave up 2 kills. But the point still stands, right? It's like Mad Lions were very sharp, take control of the river, face check first, use the Nautilus, use the Lee, Lissandra, 3v3, the enemy can't contest you, put down the vision, deny the vision, and then allow you, basically leverage Fog of War to then pressure into other lanes and then slowly suffocate Vitality. Very good plan against a team like Vitality because they need those lane advantages to, thrive in the later stages of the game as we saw in game 2. We continue. We continue all the way. Trying to remember this moment. I'm kind of blind to this moment. Vitality found a little moment where they outnumber. Beautiful kick. No eat ready for Kaiser. We continue. Bolok for a steal. Kenneth picks up the Herald on the back end. And here is just a moment, right? Once again, one of those moments. You have the map opening straight into top side. Lissandra is isolated on mid. Mad Lions is forced to open through mid because they can't collapse on side first because the skirmishes, they are weaker. They need to play through mid and then place down vision and then slowly, gather information. Hilly isn't spotted. Lee Sin isn't spotted. Cannon can't contest the top wave, as an example. Right? They walk up. They snack on him. Looks like he's about to get away, but the gang bros, they just have enough CC to pull him right back in. All of a sudden, you have this gold advantage just ballooning, you know? Even the gold advantage isn't that big on paper. It's more about the concentrated gold, right? Concentrated gold in Lissandra's pockets, in Lee Sin's pockets, just makes him so much stronger in those 3v3 engagements. This particular game was rather close in a way because the Drake role was Chemtech. In any different scenario where a different soul, of course, is locked in, it would have been a lot more decisive, I feel, for Mad Lions. But definitely the fact that this soul was spawned gave Vitality some fighting chances. A very unique detail in this game that might not be shown in the highlights is how well Mad Lions played around the Tamkench Eat. They posture forward, they try to throw abilities to make sure to force the Tamkench Eat, they disengage, and then they played around the timing where there was no Tamkench Eat. Because Tamkench's whole purpose is to disengage and to deny the enemy of killing your Syndra and Aphelios, but if the Tamkench ult is down, it's not only that Tamkench is out of commission, it kind of puts Aphelios out of commission too, and Syndra out of commission too, because there's nothing really that can stop the enemy from breaking those ankles, right? In the situation, Mad Lions, Tamkench Eat is on cooldown. They're trying to leverage that to the max. Niski is just pushing forward because he wants to create a situation where he CCs Vi, they secure the Nash, and they continue with the game. In this particular game, Mad Lions needed 3 Nashes to end the game, but it's completely natural, right? They are very short range, and they took a Nasher very early on in the game. A key note for those who are interested, Nashers after 25 minutes are just way more valuable because after 25 minutes, each wave comes with a cannon. And you know the cannon minion that hits from afar is just so inherently OP, obviously, because he just gets this mega range that is outside of the turret range, and it becomes very easy to siege down turrets. And it kind of gives you, that range that you're missing in your composition. But of course, a Nash pre 25 minutes just has a cannon every second wave instead of every wave, right? We continue. A little bit of throw on the first Nash. No worries. Same play pattern emerges from Mad Lions. They're just trying to pressure the Nash and create a circumstance where they just CC Bow, push him out of the pit. Mad Lions know they're stronger in the 5v5 and they want to make sure that they invite those 5v5s from Vitality. Very strong play. They could have smited together with Zaya. I've said many times on this channel, I don't believe in 50-50s. If your whole team is hitting Nasher, it's not a 50-50. You can coordinate bursts together. You have Zaya Blade Recall. This particular insight didn't do it so well, but if you do combine Lee Sin Q with Smite and Blade Recall, you can do easy 2k damage, no problem, if you just coordinate it together. And I think this is also important to recognize. The best of the best teams, they burst together, and 50-50s are pretty much a myth, right? When you're the comp that is stronger, you need to be able to force Nasher, and you need to do it with gusto and confidence and bravado. Make sure that you choose a number that you burst on, and then if the enemy crosses the pixel, for example, or if you have a lot of champions that can cross the wall, then just hard engage on the enemy, and you've invited that situation where you can force on the enemy. Mad Lions doing this and looking for this, sniffing for this. Eventually, we have a point in the mid lane where Bo gets caught. And this was a very important detail here because Upset gets spotted by the Planty, and they manage to burn his flash. The eat here, flash eat from Kaiser, and then Aphelios flashes out. Gale falls out, has to flash from, of course, the K-Sante Q. These are important details because now you have a window where there's no Upset flash, no Kaiser flash as Nasher is spawning, as the Elder Drake is spawning, and this is a very important window. The enemy team, Vitality, feeling very awkward about posturing for this one, and this, of course, the Nash gets taken. Final nail in the coffin is just this fight around mid lane. Vitality feel the need to push her forward because they want to contest this Elder. They feel like if we lose this Elder, we're going to lose the game. Um, and then what happens here is just Bo gets hooked. It's just a dry hook. My man gets just hooked like that, and then Elioya finds a little angle. Vitality have no vision at all and no eat because they just ate the Vi, and the game is over. Beautiful Elioya performance here on the Lee Sin. Very nice. Good coordination with mid-jungle support as well. Very, very nice indeed. Now, finally, for game number 4, let's take a look at the draft. Here the change up from Mad Lions since their previous red side game where they played the Jace and the Sejuani. Vitality go for Maokai, Tristana, Rumble again, and this time around Mad Lions choose to go for the Cannon. And another important detail here is that they didn't ban Vi, they chose to ban Jinx instead on Blue Vitality. So this was another change up. If we look back here, Vitality on Blue, Gragas, Rakan, Vi, and then Jinx was picked on 3. But then they changed it back by giving Vi and then going Jinx ban on 3. I was kind of surprised that this adaptation happened. I think that banning Vi was just better, and I felt like, yeah, they have enough answers into Jinx. It's not a problem. But they chose to open Vi and then pick Maokai and run back the same comp. It's surprising, right? Because I feel like Vi is a strong jungler into Tristana and Rumble. That hard CC, sure you can buffer it with Tristana, but I feel like it's better than some of the other junglers that you can pick, right? It's like if the enemy wants to play Maokai, I think that's slightly worse. Maybe they can play Lee Sin and then pick something into Tristana, but I don't know. It's just the Vi is something that Mad Lions have done so well on. Nevertheless, Cannon on 3, I like that a lot, right? You have the Vi and the Cannon. It's going to be easy to pick off Rumble on side if it comes down to it. A lot of CC, and Rumble always needs to be scared about ganks. Rumble a very strong, isolated 1v1 champ, but when it comes to how much danger he has to put him in order to exude his pressure, that's a metric that is very important to evaluate and measure. Nevertheless, you have the Cannon on 3 and then the follow-up bans Lucian and Nautilus. So that's something that we talked about a lot so far, right? The Nautilus 4-5 denying the enemy, the very strong blind. So here after the Nautilus ban, Vitality to themselves is like, yo, we need to set up Thresh. So we banned the Blitzcrank, and then Mad Lions were like, well, fuck it. It's like Nautilus is out, Blitzcrank is out. We have to pick Thresh ourselves. Aphelios and Tahm gets picked together. Tahm is okay into Thresh, and the idea of Tahm Eat being strong into Vi is still something that is tested and true. And then the TF on 5. So I already know that Mad Lions are really, really sticking to this identity of they don't care how much their comp is going, how much cohesiveness their comp is going to have in 5v5. They think the detail of the 3v3s and the 2v2s and being first in places is way more important. And I think that so far in this series, they did show that this is very true. Playing Rumble against Cannon, Vi, Twisted Fate is insanely hard because if the enemy wants to kill you, they will. Insanely hard. And Vitality, if their solo laners and their lanes can't play to pressure and play to build advantage, I feel like Vitality lose their teeth rather fast. And that has been just the story of the whole best of 5. Eventually in this game, we have a big Nash situation where basically what occurs, we had a lot of back and forth, kills on Rumble, Vi and Cannon coordinating together, a lot of good stuff. Cannon was in super conditions. You see the swiftness boots on Rumble. This guy is completely homeless. He's very, very sad in this game. Cannon was like hitting tier 2s and leveraging the pressure he has from the Vi and the TF. Very, very nice. The Cannon's very strong. I'm just going to show this moment that put the nail in the coffin for Vitality.
Gold call prime from Niski Perks looking for...
Vitality, Photon overheating, TP coming in, Maokai, Saplings spotting the enemy, but this was Vitality's attempt at stealing an Ashe from under the nose of Mad Lions, but Mad Lions, they're not gonna accept that. So they're just hard engage. Bo is stuck in the pit. He was very uncoordinated with his team. Tomkinch ET used, and then finally Niski with the rapid fire cannon finds the CC on upset. He cleanses late, I believe. He doesn't cleanse the cards. I don't know if this is a visual bug, but the cleanse doesn't come through. The ET is on cooldown, and Chasey finds his SMEB moment. So, how do you summarize the series? Summary of the series is Vitality, some decent individual players. I think they lacked in some of the draft department because I think that their support Kaiser was very limited in what he was effective on. His Tomkinch was very underwhelming, and keep in mind Vitality's bot lane still, they haven't played together as long as Kazi and Hilly, right? And I think that definitely showed in how they executed some of the matchups and the outcomes that they were in. I think the Tomkinch was something that they didn't look comfortable on. They weren't really willing to pick Thresh in some positions, and I think that matters a lot. I think that Bo's role on this team is definitely unclear, very unclear. I think that, in regards to how the other two junglers that are still left in the tournament, if you compare Bo to Shio and Elioya, if Shio and Elioya just have so much better cooperation with what the laners want to achieve. They're very aware of vision. They are very aware of lane states that they need to support and where the action will be and where the action should happen. And I think this is essential. It's like if you're playing Maokai, if you're playing Vi, if you're playing Sejuani, without that level of coordination, you're not going to feel so impactful or so strong. And I think this is the main thing that Vitality need to work on. How they play a structured game that allows you to connect in the game and spread your pressure to other points in the map. And this is something that the two teams in the final, do so much better. And this, of course, is not only on Bo, it is, of course, a team effort. I think Vitality were also rather slow in terms of figuring out what they wanted to play and what kind of suited their play style. I think that Vitality has some strong individual players. I believe still that they have potential. But now their lack of coordination has been their doom, while the opposition, Mad Lions and BDS, are peaking in this department when it comes to the coordination. Mad Lions continue beautifully. I think this series they played even better than they did yesterday. I think G2 is definitely a trickier beast to wrestle with because they can also throw some curveballs in your direction. And I think they're a little bit more creative than Vitality is. But Mad Lions played a very clean series in terms of how they pressure together. Sometimes, they overreach and they take fights that are bad, but at least they take those fights together. And I really want to hammer home how important that is. That as a player that is playing with other teammates, if you know that people are going to back you up when you make decisions, those decisions have such a higher rate of success than those plays where you believe that you're going to do something right and you don't feel like your team is going to support you. And I think this is so important. And recognizing what is important in the game, what space to contest, and what vision to contest, and what lanes to impact is so important. And I think Mad Lions do that beautifully. Looking ahead, BDS versus BDS versus Mad Lions. It's very late. It's 1 a.m. And I feel like the food coma from the sushi I just ate is really beginning to hit. BDS as a team are very streamlined in the way they approach the game. So how do we define BDS? They play mages mid. They play the strong junglers on the patch, Wukong, Sejuani, Maokai, Vi, just very strong T-fighting junglers with strong ultimates that you use to secure lanes, and you play around the 2v2, 3v3s depending on what your teammates give you. They play all of the important AD carries on the patch, Jinx, Aphelios, Zeri, super, super good. Zaya, wonderful. Crowny, just very lethal on those champions and carries games on those champions. Adam, always dropping 4-5 and just picking whatever the fuck he likes and just sacks his lane completely just to make sure that his team is grouped and they can contest space and making sure that the enemy doesn't have a play on the other side of the map. That is the identity of Adam right now. He's buying Warden's Mail, Ninja Tab. He doesn't give a shit. He needs to be tanky when the lane swap scenario comes in. He's the only top laner in the top 4 that is willing to slam a Sion for the homies. I still think Sion is a fucking strong champ, by the way. I think Gragas is a fucking strong top laner, by the way, too. It's kind of ironic that we've gone full circle. It's like now we have in Europe, these top laners that are willing to fucking lock in Akshan and completely sabotage their team because of this whole narrative around European top laners being bad. We've gone full circle. And then we have in the east we have 369 completely 1v9ing on the tanks, and you have of course our boy Doran smurfing on Gragas, and then we are in a situation where Zeus is playing Sion, and then Billy, Bin, after losing the finals, started spamming Sion and Gragas in solo queue. We've gone full circle, and I think this is a great way to approach the game. There's no shame in that. It's like, sure, there's some metas where being able to play carry top lane is super important, and it will be a big crux. It will be a problem for you if you can't, because the enemy will just dominate. If that happens to be like, let's say, the MSI meta or the world's meta, right? But sometimes, you need to take a step back and also recognize, the pattern of the game is just 3v3 around mids, collapse onto bots, and bot lane champions are just giga broken right now, right? That's something to think about. And I follow up here with BDS's structure. It's like Adam plays to sack his lane and just play for the homies. Mid lane, always what we see now is Cassio, Oriana, Syndra. Just a mage that's going to scale well, can manage the wave, can clear waves, and then support whatever AD carry that is going to be picked. And then Labrov is kind of the wild card, because I think the edge Labrov has over Hilly is that I can imagine a lot easier Labrov playing the Tahm-Kench, playing some of the more supportive champions to set up Crowny for success, because the gaps in the compositions are being filled by the Sion in the top lane and, of course, the jungler. So BDS, very streamlined. They play around bot. And then you have Adam sacking waves to make sure that he's there for the first Drake. And then they set up super well for the first Herald. Very structured gameplay where they sack their entire top lane in order to make sure that their AD carry is ahead. And that's a working recipe. It's like, if I can choose in most games, if my AD is ahead one item and the enemy top laner is ahead one item, it's like being ahead on your AD carry is so important, because the enemy AD carry can no longer trade hits with you. Whenever your AD carry pushes forward, it is just going to be so impactful in the game. And when you have an AD carry like Crowny, that's a player that you can trust and rely on. The key difference between the two playstyles here that we are going to see is that Mad Lions have been very sharp at finding the enemy's mistakes in between each Drake setup. They're very good at opening up on the map and collapsing on the right side and using Fog of War to really suffocate the enemy. And I think that G2 and Vitality, this has been their biggest weakness. I think that the solo lanes of G2 and Vitality, they always want to farm side, they want to make sure that they are the ones pushing side, and they want to contest this aspect. But BDS don't do that. They simplify and they play on two lanes. They sack waves. Adam is going to be super, super far behind. They're going to lose some side turrets, but they're going to make sure that they're there when the objective is spawning, and they're willing to sack waves for it. And the question is, how hard can Mad Lions bleed them in that situation? Because on BDS's end, they are drafting these 5v5 compositions, and they're making sure to not get punished in between the sequences of the objectives spawning. And the question will be, can Mad Lions be dangerous enough in the early game? Shu is a jungler that has done a very good job of securing the right base timings, because it's like the game is very structured in a way where if you set up your bot for a base and they can leverage the advantage of the tempo. Basically, it's like if you stack 3 waves into base on bot and Aphelios cheater recalls and the enemy is stacking a wave into you, and then the wave bounces, and then you crash the wave, and then you base first again, and then you first on the map with Noon Quiver, and this is already 5 minute mark, and then you stack a wave crash and your jungle starts Drake. These are the key sequences that BDS do so well. And this is going to give them guaranteed value and at the same time is going to secure them from potential ganks, right? They aren't looking to squeeze the most by doing some greedy pathing in order to make sure that they're there for some cheeky gank or for some cheeky setup around mid. This is not their type of play. They're making sure that the base timings hit and they are ready for when they've coordinated to fight together. Another thing that BDS does so well is just their fight selection. Their fight selection is super good and their fight awareness is super good. Sometimes I'm watching BDS and I'm like, oh, they could have scored some more here. They could have gotten maybe another kill, or there was a fight lurking in the position where they could have potentially gained bigger enough advantage. But they're very quick to back off and they're very coordinated in knowing this is what we came for, we take it, and we're going to slowly grind the enemy out. We don't need to get that additional kill. That elevated sense of risk within the game is not going to help us achieve a victory. We're going to look for those guaranteed wins and we're going to make sure that there's no openings for the enemy team. And that's why this clash of styles is so damn interesting, because Mad Lions is direct opposite. It's like if you're a can of beans and Mad Lions are trying to pry you open without an opener, they're just digging their nails into this can of beans. They want to get to those beans that are going to give them an advantage. I don't know where I'm going with this analogy, but the point is, Mad Lion is going to try very hard to create circumstances where BDS make mistakes. But I think BDS is the team that really, really likes to take it easy, really likes to take it slow. And they basically only look for those very low hanging fruit with guaranteed rewards. I think the big advantage of BDS is the fact that they're very flexible around what they play in the bottom side and they're very strong laners. I think this is where they can potentially create advantage in bot and they can create a rhythm in the game where they get advantages around Drakes. Mad Lions had an easier time securing the Drakes against Vitality today because they lacked that level of coordination. I think that, when it comes to Adam, I'm curious, Sion Darius Olaf, it's like this is what he likes to play. It's like everyone on BDS are just rotating 3 champs. It's kind of interesting. It's like Sheo rotating Sejuani, Wukong, Vi, and Maokai. He's rotating that. You have Labrov, he's probably the one player that is playing a lot of different supports. And then you have Adam, Sion, Darius, Olaf. You have mid lane rotating Oriana, Syndra, and Casio. And then you have, as mentioned, I already mentioned top lane. And then you have Crowny rotating Aphelios, Zeri, Jinx. Right? And that's a very good structure to follow by. They're always looking to pick 80 jungle mid 1, 2, 3. Sometimes they drop a mid to make sure that they have a strong support pickup like the Thresh. But the draft structure remains the same. And I think the big advantage for BDS, as mentioned before, is just the bottom side and being flexible enough to play a lot of different variants and having the capacity to support a support that wants to play a ranged champion. On Mad Lions' side, they have the Gragas Juicer, but I believe that, BDS have enough room to look to, of course, ban the Gragas and the Rakan and the Annie. And this is what I'm expecting from them on blue side. I think that they can look to pick by themselves, they can look to pick Maokai, they can look to play the Tam, right? I think that Labrov is probably the only player right now that should be playing Tam in Europe. And that is, an advantage, as mentioned before. They can pick a support that can potentially break the enemy comp in a 5v5 and actually create game states where they will reach that point. And that's also important. All in all, I should probably round off the video because I've been talking for a very long time. What is my prediction? It's a tough one. people hate it when I talk about experience and so forth, but you know, being pressed in a best of five in a finals, playing in a finals, and losing a game in a finals, how is BDS going to recover from that? Right? That is the main question for me because I've painted this picture of BDS being very cookie cutter in the way they play, and that has racked them many fucking games in a row. And they've, you know, there's almost this hint of have they forgotten how it feels to lose? Have they forgotten how it feels to adapt? And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, right? It's like in the end, it's like I'm trying to poke holes on this idea of a team winning games and games again. If they 3-0 the finals, then, joke's on me, right? They're just that damn good. But how is BDS going to react to a potential loss? How are they going to react when some of these champs that they like to go to in the top lane or in the mid lane, if these get banned and they get targeted, that is the main question for me. But all in all, I think this is a very tough prediction to make. Honestly, I think we're going to go all the way to 5 games. Shit, I hate the fact that I need to make a prediction. My heart is telling me Hilly's gonna go all the way. My man has played so many fucking finals. My heart is telling me Hilly, but I have to say my brain is telling me BDS right now. I think that BDS are gonna play clever enough to play defensive and smart enough not to give away too much in between the sequences of Drake spawning. And I think that this is the time where Crowny is going to win a championship. But there could be a world where this newly elevated Mad Lions manage to put just enough pressure on BDS to make them crack, make them panic, and make them play the sloppy Mad Lions game that they are so damn good at. And if you catch Hilly, Elioya, Niski, Karzi, even Chasey on the wrong day, they will cut you apart because they are fearless and relentless in their approach. And this is what BDS need to be ready for. I say again, very tough series to predict. I couldn't even conceive the idea of Mad Lions being in this finals today, but they've managed to make it work. And it's tough to now compare this leveled up Mad Lions to a BDS that we saw play last week. Maybe BDS have also found ways to have new strides, but I think a key detail here is, of course, that BDS is going to start on blue side, which is an advantage, and also they've seen Mad Lions play a total of 9 games in this weekend. Mad Lions, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't feel fatigued because the adrenaline and the momentum can be a hell of a thing. And I hope that we're going to have a fantastic best of 5 tomorrow either way. I don't mind being wrong. I don't really care about being right either. We don't really revisit my predictions anyway. It's just to make a spicy headline to make you click these videos. So if you made this far into this video, bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you guys tomorrow on the LEC Finals broadcast. Take care. Awkward moment where I press the record button. Haha.